Thank you. So, I will now formally open the session by introducing Miss Anita Reddy, who is the founder of Talking, a space designed to provide support for women of all age groups to discover their own answers. She has facilitated and designed training programs for over 500 trainees in the span of 2 years. She's a mentor for Indian Society for Applied Behavioral Science. She's certified in transactional analysis and emotional intelligence. She regularly speaks at conferences on women empowerment, health, fitness, travel, and dyslexia. She also has participated in Bengal Rally as a two-woman team and drove from London to Magnolia in an 18-year-old 999cc car, covered 20 countries, 15,000 kilometers in 42 days, and collected 27 lakhs for the charity. She has lived barefoot for 2 years as a lifestyle experiment. She's a barefoot runner and ran about 20 plus half marathon and is also a barefoot hiker and did an 18-day barefoot hike in Himalayas among other treks. Today, her topic is Feel the Fear, and I'm sure with your experience, you would definitely inspire to feel our fears. And I must tell you, Anita, I don't go without slipper inside my house, and going barefoot for high hiking and running is amazing and commendable. So, once again, a very warm welcome to you. Please take it over from here.
Thank you, Rima. It's yeah. First of all, good morning. That was really a long introduction. I was not expecting all that to be said here. Uh, Warm welcome. I'm really happy, and I must admit this is not going to be a Gyan session. Okay, I'm absolutely against Gyan. So people, feel free to pitch in. You have any questions? Obviously, at the end of the session, we will have a question and answer session. I'll be as much as possible. And so today, I wanted to simply share my story. I know while the topic is feel the fear, I think the fear is also in relevance to how I experienced it. And while I share this story, I would want you to take whatever comes, whatever works for you from that. It need not be fear, it can be something else, it could be in connection to your dreams. So feel free. One thing I definitely don't work with is put boxes around something. So I'm simply going to share the story of the Mongol rally, which I did 3 years back. So what is, so I think in between, am I allowed to do the presentation, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I will just get that mode on. So this is a journey which began 3 years back. And it was from a simple call from a friend, very close friend. And she said, you know what, there is a sister of mine and she's doing something crazy and she's looking for a partner. And she has to be a woman. And only other crazy woman that I know is you. So will you be willing to take up that? And I think I must have spent 30 seconds. And the only thing that registered in my head at that point was she said crazy 3 times. And I said, oh yeah, of course. And remember, this is a sister who I have not heard about, I haven't met in my life, and I have no clue what I'm getting into. And that's how I signed up for Mongol Rally. So what is Mongol Rally? Mongol Rally is, in terms, it is known as the greatest motoring adventure on the planet. I think looking back, I think it is the stupidest motoring adventure on the planet. Okay. So it has some basic rules. The basic rules are about you going with basics. So there is no luxury. So you can't take a SUV. The rally typically starts in London and ends in Mongolia, and that's the only thing they tell you. Okay, they don't tell you what route to take. They don't tell you how many days you can do. There is no support. You're completely on your own. The only restriction they have is that you have to take a car which is smaller than 1000cc. So in relevance to India, it's the size of a Maruti Alto. Okay, and at the same time, one of the other condition is you have to raise money for charity. So one being Cool Earth, which they sponsor, and one of our own choice. So we choose Isha Vidya because we wanted to work with children who can, get educated. Farm children. Isha Vidya had a unique program where they would take children who are working as laborers and help them to educate. So only when I think I heard the term Mongol Rally, I kind of looked up at their website and I said, huh, okay, now I have no clue what I have gotten myself into, right? And I will, as we go, I think I'm going to talk and introduce myself. So this is typically the route map. Don't go by the ABCD. It's a random map that I could make up. I'm technically not very good with, technically challenged. So we started in London and we ended in Mongolia. The plan was to do this trip over 40 days. And the other most important part of the plan was that there is going to be no plan. So other than our visas that we needed to go through these 20 countries, we had no plan. There was no booking. There was no look up to, okay, which country, what am I going to face? And these are countries where, I don't know how many of you have heard names like Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and I had never heard them 3 years back, right? So this was the route map that we had to take. The plan was to take this route and go on this journey. I'm introducing the characters of this entire story. Yeah, of course, Anita, that's me, and Chandini, that's my partner. And we named this car as Harriet. So we said, okay, it's going to be an all-women team. So the funny story about this car is when we were planning this trip, both of us don't stay in London, but we had to buy the car in London. So we did we bought a car a month prior to the adventure and registered and did the online payment, all things sorted. And Chandini lands there about 5 days before the rally. And the owner tells that the papers are lost. So if the papers are lost, we can't take this car across so many countries. So the 5 days before the rally, we are looking for another car. Okay. And then by God's grace, I think we found this car, which was like a 18-year-old car. Yet it had already done 1 lakh kilometers. So we were like, okay, is this going to survive this kind of a journey? But like I said, we really had no choice. The adventure had truly begun for us. So this is Harriet. And pre-rally, so what are the important things? So I, with the Indian passport, to travel across these 20 countries, I needed 11 visas. Okay. So while, most of us like to travel and do adventure, and we all remember the happy part, but the paperwork, it took me 3 months of paperwork to get those 11 visas stamped on my passport. Some of the countries had weird rules like that I have to contact somebody in their country, and from there they will papers to their embassy, and from their embassy it will come to Indian embassy, and by the time it comes to Indian embassy, my passport has to reach their country embassy here, and then they will decide whether they want to stamp my passport. It was ridiculous. So 11 visas is what I needed. And my partner is a US passport holder. So she needed like 3 visas. So it saved her this one. Both of us didn't know car mechanics. And, most of the friends suggested, okay, you need this manual. So this is a manual book. We generally packed up a lot of stuff in terms of what is required for the car. Along with that, we were told that there'll be a lot of bribery on the way. So we picked up things like, cigarettes. We picked up things from India. Like I picked up mehendi cones. I'm like, okay, if I'm going to find some interesting people, then it will be a new talent that I can show. So anything and whatever we thought of, we just picked it up and got ready for the rally. So here we go. So this is the day adventure that began, and this is July 16th of 2017, and about 250 participants every year sign up for this rally. Some do it on bike, some do it on in the car, and yeah, you can see the tagline. It says, we had no idea what we were getting into, really. So typically, yeah, when you travel, we meet people. So this is like, all the amazing people that we met. You see views, this is like the most beautiful pictures from the, in Uzbekistan, to the sea view, to the bridge in Istanbul, to, to the lovely views that we had, and of course the landscapes, like varying landscapes. We went from London, which was at 38 degrees centigrade, to the highest being 45 degrees centigrade in Kazakhstan, to Mongolia, which was at -5. So the entire stretch, huge different landscapes. If you can see the picture of the camel, this is very typical to that, the Asian, this side of the Asian, where these are called the double humped camels. So perfect. It was like picture perfect scenarios. But yeah, what is an adventure if everything is so picture perfect? Okay, so that's where the stories start. Okay, so I think the first time that the reality of the adventure hit us is when we reach the Slovakia border. So till here, our visas are, pretty much very, you have a UK visa and you have a Schengen visa, and you're just zipping past through borders. There is no border check, there is no security, nothing else. Okay. But when we reach our first border where a check is required, if you can see the first picture on the left-hand corner, that's how the check post on the borders are. It used to take us about 5 to 6 hours to just stand in those queues and get through a border. And this was at 45 degrees centigrade. Remember, the car has no AC because it is a 996cc. There is no AC. There is hardly any room for things to fit in and make it more comfortable. So we're waiting in this. You can't idle the car. It has to, it has to stop. It has to start. And it was really painful. The first time we did it, it was painful and excruciating. One of the things that reminded us, how human life, how resilient it is. So while we were standing in these queues, there used to be these people who would come with, the usual water bottles, like the Kinley water bottle with holes on their cap. And they used to come and randomly, spray water on the glass and start cleaning. And we were like, what is happening, And then at the end of it, they would turn around and they would ask money. Very typical of way of making money there while we were standing in that queue. And they would not take anything less than $1. They didn't want the local money. They would want a US dollar and this. So the next day, I think by the first experience, we figured out, next day to beat them was, before we entered into a border, we would clean our car, like it would be spick and span when we are in the line, so that nobody comes and, gets into the mode of asking us money. So that's how I think we learned things on the go. There was this one time where we were driving past and we were stopped. Okay. So for people who have traveled or who have not traveled, in London, when you buy a car, the steering wheel is on the right-hand side of the car. Okay. But in all other countries, the steering wheel is actually on the left-hand side. So we had a right-handed steering car and driving through countries which were had the driving restrictions of the left-hand side. So it was very weird. So while we were zipping past, and I think I was, just looking at logistics and all that, and then we were flagged down by the cops. We are like, oh shit, now what? What did we do? Because you're in a foreign country, and understand, none of these countries speak English. Once you are in, you're beyond Serbia, there is hardly any English spoken. Okay. And we reached there and we flagged down. Okay. We said, okay, this is our first brush with the cops. Let's see what we have gotten into. So we go there. The moment we come closer to the cops, they start laughing. I'm like, okay, now what happened? And then they explained to us that because I was on the phone and trying to do some booking, they assumed that I was driving and I was on the phone. Whereas Chandni was the person who was driving and her seat was on this side. They were laughing it out. And then of course we took this picture just as a memory that, these are the cops. So if you see the picture, one with the cops, and then of course they laughed their way out and then they let us away. So the interesting people that we met at the borders, one of the person that I met remember was his son. This is in Azerbaijan, and his son was a footballer. So he was very proudly, on the border, he's showing off, what his son did, how much he struggled in his life and how he has come up. And it was very endearing for a person, to share with somebody. So to point it out that at this point, I was also living barefoot. So I went through this rally while I was completely barefoot. So people were like crazy. What is happening? There's two women from Hindustan. They wouldn't say India. They all know us as Hindustan. And they'll be like, who are these two crazy women from Hindustan and one of them barefoot? And what are they doing in this part of the country where you hardly see any tourists? So that's the weird looks we used to get, which works to our advantage because people used to come forward to help us. And so this is, okay, this is, so when you finish, we reach Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, there is to go into Turkmenistan. So Turkmenistan is a very weird country. They don't issue individual visas. They only issue a group visa. And they only issue visa for 5 days. So in 5 days, you enter the country and then you have to exit also. If you're not exiting, there is a fine of $1,000 you have to pay for every extra day that you stay. So this is, so while we had the visa in place, thanks to the Mongol Rally planners, we have to cross from Baku to Turkmenbashi, which is the other side of the port. That is, in between there is a Caspian Sea. And this ferry that takes you across is known to be the most notorious ferry. While the journey time is only 12 hours, technically is only 12 hours, nobody knows and nobody can guarantee when the ferry will start and if it will reach in time. And the weather conditions are also so untypical that if the winds are very strong, the ferry doesn't move. So we had to wait for 3 full days to get into a ferry, get our car loaded. So one of the pictures here is our car being loaded onto the ferry. And once we were in ferry after 3 days, we are like, oh my God, thank God that we are on the ferry. And now we will get to the other side of the port and the journey will begin. But guess what? For 2 days, we were in the ferry and did not move. So what you see, the picture on the bottom left-hand side is of Baku in Azerbaijan. And the ferry left the port. So that means we cannot enter the city back. And it was stagnant at the point from where I took the picture for 2 full days. Now in these 2 full days, the toilets are not working. They are all jam-packed. And this is a ferry where you only have seats. There are no cabins. So it is like a typical our local bus. So you can just put your sleeping bag, and it was like at one point, I think we stopped eating and drinking anything simply because we didn't want to go into the toilets. And we don't know how long this is going to take. But yeah, thankfully, after 2 days, the ferry started and we were on the other side of the port, Turkmenbashi. And then we were like, okay, now we are going to get offloaded. But that was not the case. It took us almost after we landed, it took us 18 hours to get off that ferry into Turkmenistan. And the moment we entered Turkmenistan, we realized from the time they stamped our passport, we had already exhausted 1 day. So we just had 4 days to finish the entire Turkmenistan route. Okay. Now these are countries where there is dictatorship rule. So very, very tough restrictions on whether you are owning a SIM card, whether you have to take money or move where you stay. It's all very, very restricted. It is not easy. Forget women, even for guys who are there, you have to be on the edge every single time on what you say, whom you meet, how people are going to perceive you. It was the most difficult part. If you can, of course, I spent a lot of time entertaining myself and the other Mongol rallyists by doing the Mehndi. But when we got out and we started driving and this thing, one of my, I think the most amazing moments was going to this. So this is a place called Darwaza, and it is literally called Door to Hell, where, way back while Russians owned this land, they were looking for gas, and while looking for gas, they found something else, and they decided to close the rig And they thought, okay, if we lit it up, it is going to, get exhausted, and there is going to be no danger for, public around here. And it's been burning. It's been burning for a good 80 years now. The gas is not getting over. So it is, so when you go there, this is a huge crater in the middle of nowhere. And you can, when you go close by, you can actually feel the heat of the place. So I think this is one of the most, highlight of my this thing. And even going here, we couldn't take our car and go, because the landscape is filled with sand dunes. So if I take Harriet there, Harriet, like you know, it's a 996cc, which means it has hardly, people who understand horsepower, it has horsepower of 56 horsepower and 6-inch clearance, which means that it cannot go to really, really tough terrain. So we had to hire, a private tourist vehicle to go here and see this place. And this was totally worth it. I think once we reached here, the journey of the last 1 week, which was like really, really painful for us, was completely gone. So for you to give the relevance of how big this crater is, if you see the picture on the left-hand corner, there is a car that you can see. So see this, how small it looks. The crater is like that huge, and it is burning for the last 80 years now. So from here, the border was very close by, and we quickly had to, exit, because we had already 1 day less. We have 4 days, and we stepped out. So introducing you to the terrain. Now, this is what is called the Pamir Highway. Pamir Highway is the most notorious highway in the world. So our Himalayas are nothing to beat it. So there is practically no road. You're living, you're driving on the edge of a mountain, and the nearest help, if either, the car breaks down, or if there is something wrong with us, or we get into any trouble, the nearest help is good 24 hours away. And it really, and there are no signboards. So if you see the right bottom picture, where there is the name of a place which we can't read, and the arrow says points towards the right actually, but the correct road is on the left hand side. And none of these countries, the GPS works. So even if you have a SIM card, you have internet, the GPS will not work. So there is no way to figure out which is the right route. And there are so many times that we got lost, not knowing which direction to go, whom to ask for help, and what to do. If you see the picture with the tires, you can see how bent the rims are. So these are roads that really take a beating on the tires. We started with our journey with 4 cars and 2 Stepneys. And by the time we reached here, we had already lost one tire completely in Berlin while we were in Germany. On a good road at 40 kilometers per hour speed, we hit a ledge, and the rim was completely bent, and we had to dispose of that tire. So we had to invest again in 3 more tires, and removed, literally pulled out the back seat so that we could accommodate the place for the tires to be there, and not knowing what we are getting into. So this is a typical terrain that happens. While we were on Pamir Highway, there is, you just go through small villages, kind of an establishment where there are, 10 houses and just a few shrubs to say that this is a village. You'll see farmlands, apple orchards, some fruit trees, but pretty much most sections is how you see the picture on the top side. It are just mountains after mountains with practically no road, and you don't see anybody. I'm going to play a small video to give you a glimpse of how it feels like. So you can see the rattling of the car is so huge that even though we are speaking to each other in the phone, you can hardly hear our conversation. You can only hear the vibration and the rattling of the entire car. And this is how typically the entire Pamir highway was, with no human soul, anywhere close by. And this and when you're doing this, your speed, literally our speed came down to about 20 kilometers per hour. So what we had planned for, like we're going to do, point A to point B on a particular day, we would literally do half the distance, and then we would be stuck in the middle of nowhere. Thankfully, we had planned some kind of exigency in terms of having a tent, having some food with us. So the picture on the left hand side is a place where we camped out in the middle of nowhere. We were just way too tired to drive anywhere. One, because it was getting dark, and two, because the nearest village from where we were looking at was good 6 or 7 hours away. So we camped at this place. You can see the road where the car is, and then we moved a little far away where there was a small stream, so we could get some water for our cooking. And before we stepped in here, I must add, we were in this small village, and we realized we didn't have some lentils and some salt we wanted. And I walked into this store, typical village store, and I asked them, okay, I want this much, I want this, and all this is in dumb charades, because they cannot, they don't know English, and the only other languages we spoke were Hindi and our mother tongue. So we reach there, and all the dumb charades that we learned in school, we use all those skill sets, and we get what we want. And this lady, who was a very old, she must have been like good 75-year-old, thin frame lady, and she did not even take any money from us, not knowing very well that we will not be seeing her again. There was no transaction in terms of, okay, they're going to come back and help me, or nothing at all. She just simply chose, not to take the money. While that is a reality that, hit us, and it was like, we were so full of gratitude for that lady. When we reached here and we parked our car, there was a car which was like a typical taxi of the place, and drove by, and there were 2 guys who came by and stopped seeing our car. So you cannot hide the car here, because it's just mountain on one side and valley on the other side. So the car is going to be visible. There's no like a hiding spot. There are no trees to hide the car. So we parked here, and these guys came coming up and said, hey, what are you doing here? This is a dangerous place. To add to this location is also very close to the Afghanistan border. So you have the fear of Taliban, you have the fear of the elements that things could go wrong. And they come and say, hey, you know what, you cannot stay here. It is dangerous. They are explaining to us in sign language. And we are like, yeah, we'll be here for, we'll be here for 10 minutes, and then we will go. But we knew we couldn't drive in the night. So when you're traveling in a car, the other disadvantage is you cannot carry any weaponry. Like typically, if I would travel to a place like this, at best, at least I would have a pepper spray. I would have maybe, something else to, in case there is a calamity, I can protect myself. But here, other than one small kitchen knife, like literally like a 3-inch pointed thing that we had in our car, there was nothing else that we could do. And I think that night, the temperature was around 2 degrees centigrade. Okay. When we tried cooking food, because of the cold water, because of the altitude, we were here at almost 4,200 altitude. The food wasn't cooking. We literally had raw food with butterflies in our stomach, that these guys have come and gone. So they know where our location is, and these are locals and we are non-locals. There is a whole bunch of psyche that we were going through. And it's not like, and you're tired. So if you see the picture on the right hand side, because we have no AC, our windows are rolled down. The entire dust that is there comes on to us. So we are like caked in like almost 2 centimeters of dust. So if you see mine, of course I was carrying gray hair, but Chandani, who had typically black hair, is completely gray. So that's how bad the dust is. So with all this dust on us, with tired body and soul, and with this fear, which is so alive in me, hardly any food to eat, we had to sleep in this tent. knowing that next day I have to be ready for the next day's journey. So the element is you have a choice. I have to simply rest. I have to sleep. There is no way I'm going to be able to do the next day journey without sleeping. So we slept in this tent, and thank God for protecting us that there was no calamity. Yes, we were tired, but nobody came back. Nobody looked for us. And we went in, to the next day. I think, so next day we drove, and the nearest place was like, I think about 2 days drive away. And that's when we actually got a place where we could, take a shower and wash ourselves out of that cake, have like a proper warm meal to replenish our souls and, rest through the entire episode. So this was one of the highlight of the moments where when you go through something, sometimes the anxiety is a lot higher than actual truth. So this is one of the highlight of the Riswell. Of course, we finished the journey, and we went into this place called Mary. We reached there, and like I said, we were hungry, and we wanted a good place to rest. And we go into this hotel. It's almost I think 8:30 in the night. So most of these places, because of the safety issue, they shut down by 7:30. So 7:30 you reach this place. You don't see people on the road. Most of the hotels are shut down. And we reach this place, which is with a very dim light, and you walk in, and we asking. There was a person who was walking past us, and we said, "Hey, we're looking for dinner. Is there food available?" And we were vegetarians at that time. Chandani was a vegetarian. I was a vegan. Even difficult to find food because these are all meat eating countries. The only thing they eat is meat. And it was like, okay, now where are we going to find food? Because the entire day, the only thing that we had was cucumbers and carrots and the little stale bread and one stale apple that we had. So we reached here, and we are like desperately hungry. And this guy walks in and said, yeah, there is, it's open. You can have dinner. And, with all the tiredness, all the thought process, the fear, the stress, everything else, what stood out is, hey, this man can speak English. We forgot the fear. We forgot that we were hungry. We forgot that we are caked in this 2 centimeters of dust. And we're like, hey, how do you know English? And then this guy turns around and said, oh, I worked in Dubai for, couple of years. So I'm not bad, but I can speak English. And like, we caught on to him like dear life. We were like, okay, now we know somebody who's in English. So we tell him, hey, you know what? We are from Hindustan, and we are vegan. There is one vegan soul and there's one vegetarian soul, and we need food. Like, we are hungry. Can you please help? So he said, okay. He comes with us into the restaurant. That restaurant had only non-veg food. So he takes his car, and we are following his car. Imagine, this is at 8:39 in the night. We have no clue where he's going. And he says, yeah, follow me. And not like we had a choice, but we follow him. And he takes us to the next restaurant. And he says, okay, wait here. And he goes into one dingy place and comes out, no food here. And then he makes us drive to another place, which is even dingier. And we are like, oh God, this looks like, okay, our adventure is going to come to an end today. But then he takes us to this place. So he finds this Italian restaurant in the middle of nowhere. And he goes and he says, come, there is food here. So that guy's come, by which time it's already 9:30 in the night, way beyond their opening time. And that guy says, yeah, I can make this. And there's a whole translation that happens. And he said, I can make it for you, but you cannot sit here and eat because the rules tell me to shut down at 9:30. And now we are like, okay, now what do we do? So he says, so this guy, the guy whom we met, and his name is Roshan. Okay. And he said, Roshan says, no problem, come home. And I and Chandani are looking at each other. I'm like, okay, now what are we getting into? He's saying, come home. So we said, okay, it took us a split second, and we said, okay, let's go and see. And he says, that guy will deliver the food to my home. You come home. So we go to his home, not knowing this is the person who we met like 1 hour back. Just because he knew English, we went after him to his home. So and we went there and we sat down in the courtyard. So the green bench that you see is his home. And we sat there, and the food comes. I think once the food comes, they say, food is like really the soul of a human being. I think that's what we experienced. It was like warm soup, good vegetarian food after like 3 days of starving that we were in. And we really this thing, some conversations going, and he says, hey, why don't you, the hotels are all closed. Do you want to go out? You can sleep here. So he offered us that bench to sleep. And by which time, thanks to the food and the whole, the stress levels coming down, we were like, yeah, we are willing to sleep on that bench. So we quietly removed our sleeping bags, put ourselves on that bench, and actually slept in an unknown person's house, in that, in a courtyard, in a god-forsaken country. And it was one of the most beautiful nights that we had. Of course, next day his mom came, his wife came. He had a small kid. So the picture on the left hand top corner is his mom. So remember the gifts I was telling you we had carried. So we had some soft toys for the kids. So we gave to them, and she made us this amazing breakfast. There was like fresh grapes, literally. So on where we were sleeping, the top has like a grape vineyard. So if you see the picture, they were real like grapes. And she made us, a platter of fruits, and we thoroughly enjoyed. And we were so glad that we made that decision to say okay to that offer where he offered us to stay in his home, and went and spent the night there. The next 2 days we spent our time with Roshan, because he showed us the ruins in that area and gave us a little of the history of that place. And it was such an enriching experience. And we were like, oh wow, this is like really beautiful. She gave us, if you see, she's holding a small jar of pickle. These are the cucumber pickle in vinegar, which is very famous in that area. That bottle, I carried it all the way to India with me. So it was so precious for me, the way they treated us, amazing people. From there, I think the journey continued. I think now every day was getting exciting, not knowing, okay, tomorrow, where are we going to spend? Is it going to be a tent? Or am I going to get food? What kind of people I'm going to meet? It became a whole this thing. So I think the other story here, what we're seeing, like I said, borders are really painful. So we started planning our journey based on which border takes how much time. And when we cross the border, we know we are going to be tired. We used to look at the nearest town that is available, where now the priorities had changed. The adventure was more about getting good place to stay and good warm food. So the priorities definitely changed. And we were in this, we had a plan of moving from Tajikistan to Kyrgyzstan. And the border, we were planning, we kept about 4-5 hours for the border crossing. But that day, because of some issue, the border crossing took 8 hours. Okay. And when it take 8 hours, the nearest town where we had planned to stay was a town called Saritash. And we reached there at, I think 9:30, 10 in the night. And on the map, this town looks like a big city. But when you reach there, it is like absolute darkness. I cannot tell you, it was like dark to the core. There was not a single street light. None of the homes, from the windows, I could see light. And we reached there, and we're looking for place. And every place we went, there must have been 3 places that I looked for. And they say, no, it's full. It's full. I'm like, what is happening? Where am I? Where are we going to stay? And then somebody says, directs us towards a hostel. And they said, you go there, you will find place. And we went there. And just when I can see the hostel lights, okay, we're going through, and this is a Nissan Micra, okay. So even the lights are not like a SUV light. So the length of the lights is only that much, okay. We went and royally got ourselves stuck in slush. Like, there was no way. We tried every other trick in this thing. The car wouldn't move out of the slush. So we said, chuck it. By which time it was already 10:30 in the night. We said, chuck it. We left the car there as it is, just picked up our passport and the little money that we had, and walked in to this hostel. And they were literally like staring us, caked, gray haired, 2 inches of dirt. Who are these 2 women who walk in the middle of the night? And we go in, and this is the hostel belonged to if you see the left hand picture, the right, the 2 women, it belonged to women. And they happily welcomed us and said, there is no water for a shower, but we can give you a place to stay, and we can give you warm food. We're like, okay, thank you so much. And we spent the night in these people's place. Next day morning, when we got up, they got us, a help from a bigger, like a Innova kind of a vehicle. It was not an Innova, but an Innova kind of vehicle. Pulled our car out of that slush after a lot of struggle, and then our journey continued. So this is typically how our story started coming, one at a time. So there is, so we went from, all these countries are called stans. So we went from Azerbaijan. When we landed in Turkmenistan, there is Turkmenistan, there is Uzbekistan, there is Tajikistan, there is Kyrgyzstan, and then there is Kazakhstan. So from Kazakhstan, you actually enter Russia, and from Russia, you get into Mongolia. So that is how the route was, was planned. When when we are crossing these borders, like I said, the maps are literally unproductive. They only tell you the shortest route. They don't give you a know-how of what is the condition of the road, how difficult is it, and what are the valleys and the heights. Nothing is given. So when we are going through these borders, there was a point where we had to go from, if I remember correctly, Osh to Bishkek. And there were two roads that were shown. One which said that it is going to be a 10-hour journey, and the other one which it said that it is going to be a 7-hour journey. So we very smartly took the 7-hour route, and we said, achha, good this thing, because we had already heard that Kyrgyzstan had very good roads. So in our mind, there was no chaos about now it is going to be bad roads, because we were like, okay, Pamir highway is behind. So now we are going to be in good road country. And my God, that 7-hour drive became 14 hours. Why? Because absolutely there was no road. There was just no road. It was only the distance which was much smaller. I think 1 hour into that journey, we realized that we goofed up on choosing which road we want to take. And there was this, and even to ask for direction, there are no boards. There are no people to ask. I think after 1.5 or I think 2 hours, we found this family gathering that was sitting in the, under trees, and they were having a meal. And we went and asked them, hey, so we want to go to Bishkek. What is the route? So this is all in dumb charades, understand? So we are saying Bishkek. How long? Bishkek, how long? And that guy says, Bishkek, go like this. He's saying go like this. So we basically want to ask him, is this a good road or is this a bad road? Is it worth going back to Osh and then taking the new road? So then we asked him, we're basically showing the smoothness of the road, and we are like, okay, how is the road? Is it like this or is it like this? He says, Bishkek, this road, duk 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 duk. Bishkek, this road, duk 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 duk. I am like, oh my God, we are like messed up. 14 hours for what was supposed to be a 10-hour smooth ride journey. We did 14 hours in literally back-breaking journey. The car's third gear stopped working by this time. Okay, we were only operating between second and fourth gear. Okay, and we reached Bishkek, and first thing that we had to do was find a car mechanic. Okay, we were like, this car, if we have to reach Mongolia, we need a car mechanic like right now. So I think that was the time where we spent 2 days, servicing ourselves first, and 2 days for Harriet to service herself. And we had to like put a sump guard underneath, get the tires completely spruced up. There was a whole lot of things, and thank God, we finally reached Mongolia in good shape and form. So these are some of the pictures from Mongolia. I think this is the left side picture is where that's Genghis Khan, the huge statue of Genghis Khan when we reached Mongolia. The family in the center is in Mongolia. So when we reached the end of our journey, the plan was not to, some of the teams decide to drive back to London in a different route. We didn't have the time nor the luxury to do that. So we choose to send the car for scrapping. So that is done in Mongolia. So before we could send the car for scrapping, we all our things that we had bought, we decided to donate it to this family. And that's how the family was very sweet. They showed us around their house. So these are the structure that you see behind is their home. It's called a ghar, and typically on a four-wheeler, like a typical SUV, Mahindra SUV in India, you can actually pack it up, and they are nomads. They move from place to place with their horses. They graze, they grow horses there, and they eat horse meat. They drink horse. They eat horse meat and drink horse milk, and they live completely on horses. And these are the places where we decided to donate. Yeah, and this is a picture very close to this week, actually. Surprisingly, that we are doing this session here. It was on August 15th that I, very like a proud Indian, I held the Indian flag. So we became unofficially, of course, the first Indian team, only women team, to do this entire journey from London to Mongolia. The entire journey took us, we had planned for 40 days. It took us 42 days. And by the end of it, I think there is, we met a whole bunch of people. Other than the tan that we picked up, like you can see, the day 1 picture to the day 42 picture, we picked up a whole lot of tan on our seeing, lost a lot of weight. But I think what was enduring was the kind of cultures that we met about. And every person, when I started this journey, the journey was more about the driving. The journey was about visiting places as a tourist. But I think the difference here was that we met people, understood their cultures, understood what are the complexities they come with, and how the entire world is actually a very, very beautiful place. For me, it's always been a thing that, in the news, you hear all these negative things. This is happening here, don't go here. There is, if you go here, this will happen. For me, this journey changed my entire perspective of what I was scared about. As a woman, as a human being, and as an Indian, I think the whole perspective of what is on the other side of fear is what really stood out for me. And these are the whole bunch of lovely people that I met. Like you can see, this is the finish line. Remember, we had 12 flat tires, 1 flat tire right on the finish line. So if you can keenly observe, after we got onto the finish line on that podium, we had a flat tire. It was like, this adventure is not yet over. So what did we achieve in this? 42 days, we did 15,150 kilometers, over 20 countries, going through, like I already shared, from -5 to 45 degrees centigrade. For Isha Vidya, we made a difference. We were able to raise funds for 192 kids. And that's almost 26 lakhs, 88,000. Yeah, 27 lakhs is what we collected. And a whole bunch of, I think the entire world came very close to us, because we had donations from people whom we didn't even know, whom we didn't even approach for donations. And this became the most, I think it changed me as a person. It changed to how I looked at life. So while this was a journey by itself, I think what stood out is the destination is not important. I think when we reached the finish line, the first feeling was, oh, this is over. That's it. We don't have to drive anymore. I think that really brought about the shift in enjoying today and every day, and looking things from a perspective that even if it is unknown, most of our fears are associated with what are the unknown factors, which none of us have control about. But I think this really got me in touch with, okay, there is fear, yes, feel it, but still make those choices and see what comes your way. So this is my experience. I don't know the timelines. I'm sorry if I'm running out, but this is the story of my journey. So thank you. I think every time I relive this, there's a different emotion that I experience. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Anita. In fact, you took us back to time. In fact, to be very honest, there are some places where I had goosebumps. I know that these are the experience which will be with you for lifetime. These are the experience where you explore yourself and you actually know yourself better than you probably knew earlier, right? Nothing else can probably compensate for this experience. That experience, nothing else can actually, only if those who have been through, they really can understand the actual feeling and the emotions attached to this, right? And I'm sure every time you definitely would come out much stronger. This is how you take your chances. And I could feel the emotion also. I mean, I could see that you went back to in the times at certain point of time, and you could actually relive those moments, right? And I'm sure the feeling you had that towards the end of the race is nothing compared to what you experience in the journey itself, right? uh, and when you told that, holding on to your life, to the man who could speak English, right? This is how we feel when we are lost, and this is how you, God's way of taking care of you as well, right, when you need it the most. So that's amazing. And this is beautiful session. I'm glad you did not preach. I'm glad you just shared your experience as it is, and I'm sure everybody would have different takeaway. This is how the stories work, right? What I resonate with, some other person would resonate with other point of time, right? I had one experience, when you talked about this, stranded there at the night, right? And very scared for your life that you don't know what would happen. uh, a couple of years ago, we went to Bhutan. And the last day of Bhutan, we were climbing down from Takshang. And you must be aware of Takshang, right? That's the highest monastery, and it's a difficult trek, but we made it in good time, and we were coming down. And it was actually supposed to be summer, and the rain started. The unfortunate part was that I was wearing Skechers, and Skechers did not have any grip, which I did not realize until then, because I never had to experience. And me and my friend, and then in Takshang is like, one side is the mountain, the second side is the valley of, I think it's 5,000 feet is deep valley. So if you
Yeah.
go, you go, and there are a lot of twists and turns. So it's not even a straight climb down. So thankfully, we had our guide called Ugain. Ugain was the guide we never had through the journey. We only hired him for that day, and we don't know why.
Mm.
And now
Mm.
we know why we hired him. He was the guy who made spaces where there's no place to put our feet, because he helped us perch our legs on feet on the stones, and there were no stones. He put his feet there.
Oh
Okay.
my God. Wow.
Right. And we were two of us. So what he did, he would bring me down, he would go back up, he will get my friend down. Every few meters he had done that.
Ah.
And I realized, I have, whenever I relive those things, I have still you said that you had held on to that bottle, right? You still must be having it. I have held on to those trousers, these torn trousers. I've still held on to those, right? So these are the experiences which really, when we go back and we realize you met that man because you needed him the most at that point of time, probably.
Absolutely.
Because what are the odds and chances that somebody who worked in Dubai for some amount of time would bump into you, and he would go over and beyond to get you the right kind of food, and like, come my home. And I know the kind of scare also you would have. Somebody like an unknown person would say, come to my place, and you realize, did I read it wrong? Am I gonna die or what? So that's amazing. I definitely related to so many point of time, and I'm in so many places I could actually relate to you. uh, and Anita, I have around 10 students who already have raised hands. It means they have questions. I hope you don't mind taking up a few questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love
Great, great. So we will now first go to Manoj. Manoj, please ask your question.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Manoj. Yes.
Ma'am, this story was like a Bollywood movie going on like ups and down, but as you can say, endings are beautiful. So I got to that. But ma'am, like my question is like, there must be time which their mind will be too hectic. Like if there was anyone else, it would be like, why am I doing this? So what made you still go on? Like, no, I have to do this. What would your mindset which made you like, I have to go?
Uh, I think I've been on this journey to explore, and exploration there are no known answers. While we've been educated to say that you need to have a vision, you need to have a dream. We've been taught this, but I think the real life experience is very different. And anybody you pick up, no matter how old they are and what experience they come from, none of us can predict what the future holds. So I think the ability to be able to explore, even though I don't know, I didn't have my answers. I frankly, even if I look back, and there are a lot of times I think that, hey, why did I actually do this? Why didn't I take up a straightforward journey? I don't think I have the answers. But I think what stayed with me is what I learned. Yes, there are things that didn't go as planned. There were surprises. There was gratitude. There was fear. There was things when you're really, really exhausted and you're like, what the F am I doing here? But end of the day, even now when I'm relate, I haven't prepared for this session. I had my hard drive crashed yesterday because when I wanted to get the Mongol Rally pictures, I'm like, oh my God, this fear is really playing on my life right now. Why did I choose this topic? But that is what happens, right? So I don't think it's okay to do things without an answer. As long as in my head, I know that it is relevant to me and I want to experience it. So jump in.
I will surely try once for it, ma'am. I will surely try something, not this, but something.
It's just not about a journey, Manoj. I think it's also an everyday life. Like every day, you go meet your friends. We don't know our, what we want to study, the project we want to do, the relationships that we want to have, the kind of job we want to get into. Everything is a question mark.
Yes, ma'am.
It is relevant to, our everyday living.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Yes.
Kaushani, please ask your question.
Hi, ma'am. It's great. My name is Kaushani. I'm from West Bengal, Kolkata. So it's a great thing to actually talk to you because I myself love traveling, and I actually got it from my father. Like he loved traveling, and bachpan se he would tell me a lot of stories about him traveling to different places and what are the things he faced. And when I was a kid, I loved hearing horror stories. So he would actually put some ghost in all the stories. Like he would go on bike rides with his friends, and while he was traveling through a jungle or something, he would see a ghost, and he would add those little things. And I guess since then, I just developed this thing like I want to be a traveler, and I have actually traveled a lot with him, but I have never really traveled alone. Like so, being leaving for another state and. I think I will, of course, do a lot of things. And thank you for telling the story. I didn't know something like this actually existed, and I would love to do it. I was like all excited when you were telling the story. I was like, actually, I was listening to it. So, actually, thank you for telling. That's all I want to say. I mean, I see the motivation. Like, I know when you're traveling, you just know like I have to finish it. So, yeah.
Yeah, these places don't give you, like life, they don't give you choices. Like I had to reach somewhere and dump the car before I could fly back to India. So I have no choice. Actually, most of our life situations are.
Yeah, even when I was in Andaman, I went to there, and there's this jungle where the Jarwas stay, and you have to actually stay there and actually clear all your reports. And I know how it feels waiting for like 4 hours at the checkpost before going inside it. So I have faced it. Then I was in Tejpur, like it's in Digha. So we took our car. My father, there was this time he would always take our car, and he was like, okay, let's go on a road trip. And we would go. And then there was one time we went to Tajpur, and the beaches were like, first there were, the low tide was there. So we took our car to a little distance, and suddenly the high tide started coming. So it was actually, he is a very good driver. So he took the car, like he was like, "Arey, come inside the car, jaldi jaldi," and then he took the car and we came back. But then it was in no time all the water came.
Yeah.
So actually, I really.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kaushani, for sharing your experience as well. I can very well see that you can relate with Anita a lot more than most of the students probably. Reach out to Anita. Are you on by any chance LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn. Yes.
You
Can we connect on LinkedIn?
I'm on Insta, so you can find me in most places.
Right. I'm sure she's going to bug you a lot, Anita.
Yeah.
So we have next question now from Satya. Please ask your question, Satya.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. This is Satya here. Ma'am, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your story of the Mongol rally. Really hats off to you for undertaking this challenge. And the biggest outtake for me is that I can relate to these things, and being a management student, I can also see this. I can also apply these things when I'm managing or doing things. Ma'am, my question to you is, ma'am, what are the changes you see in yourself after the Mongol rally, apart from seeing the other side of the fear? Apart from that, what did Mongol rally bring? What did Mongol rally?
One, it definitely reduced my expectations on myself. I think I was a perfectionist, and I wanted things perfectly. But I think when I went into the rally with the notion that it is going to be an unplanned trip, self-criticism reduced. My patience levels went up, and I was more open to receiving people with a different thought process. And I think it's an evolving experience. I think there are a lot of times. See, this is like almost 3 years back now. But every time I relate to Mongol rally, there is a new something new that comes out for me. So I think it's there in me. The whole reel is constantly keeps running, but my learnings from it, I think, keep changing. But me as a person, I was okay with not having all the answers. I think the perfectionist that I wanted to have all the answers. And then I said, no, it's okay. It's okay if I don't have the answers. If I don't know something, it is okay to ask. It's all right to ask for help. And I think a lot of me as a person changed from that. I think today my career and my work, what I'm doing is also comes from that kind of experience.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much again. Thank you, Rima, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sure. Anita, I'm sure when you look for perfection, we are very hard on ourselves, right? Right. And I'm glad the sooner we realize that it doesn't exist, and we better start enjoying rather than putting a lot of effort in making it absolutely. Or sometimes it's just doing itself is enough rather than just striving for perfection. I think we all learned that, right? I think most of us learned it in our 30s.
Yeah, and I'm glad the students here are listening, and I'm like, okay, if you can learn it faster, please learn. There is no perfect job, there is no perfect career, but to be alive to yourself on what I am feeling, I think none of us are taught how to address our emotions or even acknowledge.
True.
We all want to be happy and happy, lucky, go and all that, but happy is not the only emotion we have. We have so many other. So are we listening to our emotions?
Absolutely. Anita, I will take next question now. Please introduce yourself. Rim906, I have asked you to unmute yourself. Introduce yourself and ask your question, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Naina. I'm from Mumbai, and I love to travel a lot. And your story was so inspirational. And I have dreamed to go to solo trip once. So I have to ask one question: that do you notice female inequality when you're traveling?
Yes, there is female inequality, but it's there all over the world. I don't think it is any different. The female inequality is there. But when I look at the risk factors, I think I know other teams where it was an all-men team and they got really royally robbed out of every single position they had. So I think it is more in us to how we look at things. Whether men or women, we need to be careful. Yes, but knowing what fears us and like this, most like a lot of people that have always had debate on this. They say, use your mind, and listening to your heart will get you into trouble. But I think I've learned the other way around. Yes, while listening to your heart can get you into trouble, listen to your heart. But when you put it into action, you need to use your mind. And I think if these two things are followed in this particular order, I think most things are sorted out.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naina, for question. Now, next question, SS04. Please introduce yourself and ask your question. I've asked you to unmute. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Shreya and I'm from Bihar. My question is that the kind of fear is always let you down. So how to overcome with this, and what to do to find the positivity in it?
So see, I will share the answer as it is true for me. It may not be true to you. You can take it in the format that you like. For me, fear itself is not a bad thing. It's an emotion, and we all have it. Whether we like to acknowledge or we don't like to acknowledge. For me, there is fear is there. Like today, before I have butterflies in my stomach. I know that there is. Oh, I want to do a good session. I want to speak well. I don't want any goof up to happen. The fear is there. Most people see courage as absence of fear, but courage is not absence of fear. Courage is doing something despite knowing that there is fear in life. I think that shift itself, and knowing that I alone, I'm a huge believer in the universe and the system of gratitude. So I think every time a help reaches out to me, I am in gratitude. I think that brings about a lot of positivity. We spend a lot of time in anxiety of which we may not even fix. If you look at your thought process, there is, acha, ye hoga, what if, what if, what if? We spend so much time, but when actually the event happens, we're like, why was I scared of this? It was simple, na?
Right, ma'am.
We have experienced that. I think to be able to know that and then move, I think that itself shifts a lot in us, all of us.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for your input.
Thank you.
Yes, Sanskriti, ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Sanskriti. Thank you for sharing your experience. Like, I got really excited and I really want to go for some adventurous journey. It was a wonderful session. Okay, so my question is, so much fear comes from looking to the extreme end of the, worst case scenario. And as you said, the question of fear starts with two words: what if? What if something bad happens? What if it's not perfect? What if it's disaster? And what if I look stupid? So how you can overcome those mindset possibilities, and you did it anyway?
Okay. I think we carry too much of baggage. Yeah, it's like the whole, the entire universe depends on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Go up with that feeling. And it is not actually true, right?
Yeah.
Move on. And life will go on. Whether we, achieve something, we don't achieve, we are successful, we are a failure, doesn't matter. It is because what is relevant is here, right now. Who knows tomorrow what holds? None of us know, and nobody can predict it for you. You take the best astrologer and best astro scientist, whoever it is, nobody can predict. So I think to being alive to my today here and my emotion and what I want to do, and to remove those how do you say the narrow vision and look at like the entire universe.
Broader picture.
Well, most times when I'm down, I imagine the entire universe is opening its arms and is welcoming me, and that's such a thrilling feeling for me. I think exactly. So just going through that process. Otherwise, there's enough negativity anywhere around us. Why hold that negativity within me? At least that I have a choice.
Exactly. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. We will take next question now from Paheli. Paheli, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Paheli. Yes.
First of all, ma'am, thank you so much for this lovely story. Even I also love lots of challenges in life. So definitely one day I have a dream that I will also experience this kind of road journey, this kind of like full of fear story. So, ma'am, my question is that like how much are fear costing us in terms of health and happiness?
Thank you for asking this question. Very, very relevant. So I will share what happened to me yesterday. Like I said, my hard drive with the pictures crashed, and I generally don't, whether good or bad, I don't make a PPT like way ahead. Okay, I normally end up doing things in the last minute. And yesterday afternoon, I was a mess because my hard drive is crashed. I don't have pictures. I don't have a PPT ready. I'm like, what am I going to do? So the anxiety and the fear of this session was so much that by last night, 10 o'clock, my voice had completely cut off. From last night, I've been completely on hot water. I'm doing salt water gargling, and anywhere you can see, I still have that broken voice. So our thoughts definitely manifest into physical forms. There is a lot of research on it, completely different topic. But what we hold on to does physically impact us, our thought process and this thing. That's why being alive to what is happening within me is very, very important. So the work that I do today is about just understanding myself. I think for me that itself has been a journey. And today I think the startup that I'm working for, I have founded, Talking, is only about having these difficult conversations. Even within friends, all of us will be scared when it's a bungee jump and things like that. We will still say it. But in everyday life scenario, how many times do we go up to a friend and say, "Hey, I'm getting scared today. Can you be there for me?" We don't need solutions from each other, but I think just somebody to hear each other makes a whole lot of difference, and that definitely improves our health.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Payal.
Anita, very well said. In fact, I'm a part of one Facebook group called Pula Pune Ladies Group. It's around 2.5 lakhs ladies group. They do a lot of things. There are some people do business as well, and they have a mentoring program as well. You can register yourself as a mentor, and people who need help would reach out to you for whatever kind of read. Sometimes they just want to talk. So every time I get a mentoring request, it is always by somebody who is in their 20s or early 20s, and they don't know who to talk, right? Because there are so many things you cannot talk to your family members, and there are times they want you, whether I should talk or I should not talk. This is the kind of second opinion they want from you. So I realized that the NGO, the organization that you started Talking, it is need of the hour, because we are very scared of being judged by people around us. And many of the times you have those problems where you are being silenced, right? That you are not supposed to talk about it because they're like taboo to talk about as well, correct?
Yeah.
So I'm sure you are doing a commendable job that as well. That is the need of the hour, because bringing people who need help together would make them stronger. And like she's one of I think one of the students asked, do you see it inequality in gender, right? The inequality is within ourselves more than right, it starts from us more than actually when you go on road. I don't think it is as much as when you are actually inside home. That inequality is there in your head first before it actually goes out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, very well said, that you need a platform where people can come and talk without being judged. That is the need of the hour. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm going to add to that. While we are a social being, we need friends, we need a circle of people at whom we can trust.
Correct.
Most times we forget that the only companion who is going to be there for you lifelong is yourself.
Correct. Absolutely.
Most of us don't know ourselves as much.
Absolutely. And with women it comes more often than not, right? You do we are also used to compartmentalize life a lot, like in a transitions, every transition you do that, correct?
Both men
Yes.
and
So
women equally do that, but
correct.
Women, because of the patriarchal system and other things that we have to deal with,
absolutely,
it is little larger. But I think
correct.
men equally face
absolutely.
मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता, like okay, rubbish.
They do. I don't agree with that at all. They definitely do have a lot of pain as well.
Yeah.
The only thing is when they have pain, they are looked down upon a little more, like don't be a sissy man.
From
right?
both sides. Yeah.
Absolutely. We will take. You have some time, right? So I can take a few more questions.
Yes, please. Yes.
Absolutely. So after Pari, Rim 745. Have you asked question? I don't remember.
No, ma'am.
So please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Tanvi here.
Yes, Tanvi. Hi.
Ma'am, my question is what motivated you to start running barefoot?
I wanted to get fit at, I mean, now today I'm 45, but at 36, I had a whole bunch of health problems, frustration building up within me, and I wanted to get fit, and I was introduced to running. And while I got introduced to running, I saw this whole bunch of people running barefoot. I'm like, okay, what the hell is happening? And I was this person who would get out of bed and put my feet into the slipper, and I was this kind of a person. And I said, okay, this looks, like I said, this looks crazy enough. Let's do it and see where it goes. And that's how I started on that barefoot journey. Of course, trekking is my first love. The moment I got introduced to mountains, I was totally in awe of them because of their rawness. And so I became a barefoot hiker too.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. We will take next question. Is it Prakash?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Myself, Mr. Prakash Swaha.
Prakash.
Your session is really amazing, and I inspired by your sessions. Like your point is feel the fears. As my point of view, as just you have just overcome many types of difficulties and just completed your rally to Mongolia rally. I like, and my point of view is that firstly you understand about me something different like this. If I want to do some things, I like unique or want to got success, or I like I want to just taken some task and committed them to I want to do this, but I feel fear. And my opinion, and if I fear, then I definitely do this. If I don't feel fear, then I sometimes do this and sometimes not do this. My point of view is that if I feel fear, then I definitely do this. This is right or wrong. I like if sometimes I feel to climb the tree and think about it. If I climb and after that I fallen down, then I feel fear the feel, and after that we definitely climb the tree. I like if I want to just talk with some unique persons and the unknown persons and fear, oh my god, what's happened if I talk with them, I can do this or not do this, then I definitely do this. This is right or wrong, ma'am?
See, like I said, see, fear itself is not a bad thing. Like, for example, if I am on a, say a 60-story building, if I don't have fear, I will jump off.
Yes, ma'am.
Fear is important. Fear is relevant. But knowing which fear you want to address and not address is the conversation that I can have with myself. So today, like if you tell me, would you like to do the Mongol rally again? May not be. It is still exciting for me, but may not be, because today where I am more in an inward journey. So while Mongol rally was an external journey, today I'm enjoying experiencing myself. अच्छा, you know, इस बंदे के साथ मैं कैसे बात करती हूँ, इसके साथ मैं क्या करती हूँ, अच्छा मेरा काम ऐसे है, what can I do? Like this session, अच्छा I'm talking to MBA students, I'm talking to all this, the next generation. How do I feel? So I think addressing it from that, कि अच्छा fear है, लेकिन किस बात का fear है? That's why I said feel the fear. Fear itself is not a bad thing, but knowing what is your objective to address that fear. I think that is how I would put it. Today, if there is a fear of something, then I'll ask myself, अच्छा किस बात का डर है? Is it anxiety? Is it about failure? Or is it about losing something or losing somebody? There are so many ways that fear can, create that whole whirlwind around you. ये तूफान क्यों मच रहा है? Let's look at it. That's why I keep saying you need to feel the fear, allow it, not say अच्छा नहीं मेरे को डर नहीं लग रहा है, छोड़ो इसको. That doesn't help anyone. I hope I was able to explain.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. We'll take next question from Hardeep now. Hardeep, please ask your question.
Hello, ma'am. Hardeep this side from Gujarat. First
Hi,
of all, it's really goosebumps for me. One should require a lot of endurance for this, what you did. So my question is, you talked about the pre-planning stuff and all. So how could you manage to stick to your path in spite of having no GPS or map?
We didn't stick to the path. We only knew the 20 countries that we have to go. The route was, there were almost 5 times that we lost route. What I told in the story is only one such route where I took a different route. So there was absolutely no planning. We only know, okay, we have to go country to country. And I kind of used to do a little work on, which border crossing is easy and wahan pe kya problem hai. I think there's a little bit of research I used to do the evening. So I didn't add that. I didn't know how to, my driving skills are only with automatic. And this car was a gear shift. So most of the driving initially Chandni used to do. And I did the driving part. But the more complicated the roads became and the gears, like I said, third gear stopped working. I was totally inequipped. So my job used to be typically this. Ki, acha, ye route lena hai, what border, what is happening, pick up a SIM card, change the money, pick out this thing, what are the logistics behind it. So the entire circus, I used to sit in the car and I used to do. Yeah. So we got lost almost 5-6 times, like royally, totally royally.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take next question now from Simran. Simran, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Simran.
Yes. Simran Malhotra. Ma'am, thank you so much for this inspirational story you said. I literally had thrills when you were telling the story and watching the pictures you shared. And you also said that you were the first females to, complete that journey. So it was like really inspirational. And my question is that what is that one thing that inspires you on a daily basis to be as fierce as you are every day?
The one thing that defines me is I'm alive and I'm breathing. I think nothing else is constant. Nothing else. And though we like to be happy and at peace and joy and know what we are and have answers for all the questions, I think nothing is relevant. There's still times when I have to look at my own blogs to inspire myself. I am like way down in the street and I'm like, okay, what the hell is happening? And then I go back and look at my own, blogs and this thing. I'm like, acha, okay. And then I have to really like pull myself up. So I think the one thing that keeps coming back to me, life is precious. There is a reason why I am born. There's a reason why I'm here. There's a reason why I'm put in this place. There's a reason why I'm experiencing life the way I am experiencing. Each of us are very, very unique. You take anybody, we look for advice from other people, but nobody can advise you because they don't know what you have experienced. Our experience starts right from day 0. It is about life or when graduation, MBA khatam hoga, it doesn't start from there. Your experience starts from on day 1. So I think just being alive, just being able to thrive and knowing that there is life, I think that's the only constant.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anita, we have last question now. Please unmute yourself, introduce yourself and ask your question. Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Ayushi, and my question to you is: when you thought to go on this journey, there must be some people they started criticizing that what you are doing, that you are a girl, how will you do that? So, what was your mindset at that time?
There was a lot of criticism. I think even today there are sometimes when things go wrong, people look back and say, "Acha, tab bhi tune nahi suna tha." Oh, that keeps happening. I think for me, what really kept me going and what I call resilience is knowing I want to do this, knowing I want to experience this, and whether it's a success or failure, the result didn't matter. I think that I had a clarity only on that part of it. That mujhe karna hai. This is an opportunity. It's a God-given opportunity to me, and I need to take it up. Who am I to decide what my future holds? My job ends giving it my best shot. And even if it is midway, like I said, I and Chandni, we didn't meet. We met in London for the first time. And we had to survive this grueling journey for like 40 days. It was not an easy task. I know so many teams who were disbanded in the middle of the way, with fights, with arguments, with difference of opinion. There is so many things that could go wrong. But till I jump in, I will not know. So that was the only resilience that I held on to, and that could help me, if I can use the word, fight family and friends who were like, what are you doing? Like, this. And also in 2007, Taliban issue was at the peak, and I was really driving very close to the Taliban border. But end of the day, looking back, it was all worthwhile. So sometimes it's only about trusting yourself. Like I said, the only companion and only advice you should take from is yourself.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We happen to have one last question. Can you take it?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. Yes, please ask.
Good afternoon again, ma'am. I'm Shreya and I'm from Bihar. My question related to Prakash, that how we can go ahead if we feel the fear. This question is मतलब ये समझ नहीं आ रहा मैम मेरे को.
So fear is going to be there. Fear रहेगा. करके तो देखो ना. Like for example, do you cycle? Do you know how to ride a cycle?
Yes, ma'am.
First time when you got onto a cycle, did you know how to cycle?
But if we feel the fear, then how can I ride the cycle?
But सीखने के लिए तो you have to get on and pedal तो करना है ना. You have to find your own balance, and that takes time. You will fall.
Yes, ma'am.
People kept telling me, my brother, my cousins all tell, अच्छा ऐसे करो, बिंदास, कुछ नहीं होगा. 2 हफ्ते में both were knees were totally scrapped. But weeks when I went through that whole process, and I know I have hit people. Like there was an old man walking, and I still remember, I was like, I was 9-year-old, and I went and literally, bumped into him with that cycle, and he cursed me for life. Fear is alive.
Madam, the line is डर के आगे जीत है. So
जीत का पता नहीं, डर के आगे एक्सपीरियंस जरूर है. वो कभी जिंदगी में
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you so much.
I think there's too much pressure on winning. No winning happens without failures. It is important. Failures are, I think, more important than success. If we just go with the experience of just being with the learning, I think that there's a lot of joy and peace in that. हम लोग पूरा rat race में लगे हुए हैं, but there is beyond that race. Actually, very beautiful.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope that uska clear was. You got the answer. Thank you.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know all the answers. I'm only sharing it from my perspective, so you can pick up, whatever your perspective is.
That's true. Kaushani came back and she has one more question. Kaushani, please ask.
Yes, Kaushani.
That's not a question actually. What is your Instagram ID? I mean handle. I couldn't find it.
I'm Anita.explore.
It is Nitha, right, Anita?
Nitha. Yeah, like a South Indian Anita. Anitha.explorer. Look me up, and I'm there on Facebook. I'm there on LinkedIn. To look at
I connected you on LinkedIn actually.
Find me somewhere. Sorry?
I already found you on LinkedIn and connected.
Thank you so much.
Anita, you have a stalker in Kaushani, huh?
Ma'am, I stalked all travelers.
Great. Anita, we come to the end of the session and the Q&A session as well. Thank you for sharing your story. Like I told you earlier, it was a wonderful way of communicating, and then everybody has a different takeaway, right? So rather than preaching, it's better to let them pick up whatever they need, correct? And thank you for answering a lot of questions. I know there are so many people who are inspired, maybe to travel, maybe to take their chances as well. So it was great to have you here. we look forward to having you on campus also once again. And I'm sure you will keep on your journey with adventures of different kind of adventures as well. And I wish you all the best in whatever you do. So thank you so much for being here, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity and relive my own story. Thank you. It was absolute bliss. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.